Hi guys! Welcome back to my channel. Today we'll be doing another landscape painting and we will be doing some lake and mountains. These are my favorites because we will be using our palette knife, and as you know, I love palette knife as a painting tool because it creates a lot of texture that we cannot really achieve by just using our usual brush. So I'll be linking again in the description box below the reference image for this painting tutorial. And we will be using only like what, 6 colors today, which is great because you will not be stressing so much about different colors that may not be familiar to you. So here are the colors that we will be using. We have titanium white, as always, black, phthalo blue, phthalo green, burnt sienna, and mid yellow or cadmium yellow. So let's begin sketching now. As I mentioned earlier, we will be using our palette knife, so get ready with your palette knives. If you want to use a lot of knives today, I'll be using just one, I think. So let's begin sketching now. So for sketching, I'm just gonna use my good old square brush, and I'm gonna wet my brush now. Okay, and then I'm gonna for the sketching part, I'm just gonna use my phthalo blue. So I'm gonna dab onto my phthalo, and we're going for the midline, all right? So like that. Okay, so this will be the horizon line. Okay, I think I'm gonna go and do first the mountain before I do the waters. Okay, so for the mountain, I'm just gonna use my burnt sienna. Okay, let's just sketch first everything. Let's not stress so much about the details just yet. Okay, so this will be the mountain area. Just like that. Okay, that's basically it. And then I'm gonna use my burnt sienna to create some browny colors very randomly. I just want this to be really random. I don't want to do the details first. Okay, now I'm gonna dab onto my black. Okay. I'm gonna dab onto my blue. Okay, it's just a mixture of everything. And by being free with my brush strokes for the initial stage, I'm already starting to create the texture, the random texture that I really want for the mountain area. This is just a personal preference for me. You can actually simply underpaint the mountain area with whatever color that you want. But me, I just want to already start creating the texture that I want, and I'll be achieving that only by mixing a lot of colors here. So I'm using browns and blues, and my brush strokes are quite loose and without any particular direction. I'm just, trying to be free. I'm also adding white. So again, it's just a mixture of the browns, the blues, the blacks, the white. All right. So that will be it for the mountain area. And as you can see, I did not really color this area. I might color this area because it will be covered with trees anyway, but I think I'll just go ahead and fill it up with some colors because I don't want to leave it under, or not underpainted. I'm just gonna go for it, even if I know I'll be covering it, okay? Just to make sense of the whole underpainting thing. Okay, so basically this is the underpainting for the mountain. Okay. All right. Now let's do the waters. But before we do the waters, actually we are going to do the reflections first, so that we're going to glaze over it to create the reflections. I hope I'm making sense, guys. It's just so hard to explain things just in words because, you know, we're visually... Oh, I'm more visual than, what do you call this? Like, I'm more visual than auditory, if that makes sense. Okay, now I'm gonna underpaint the waters, but then we will be doing the reflections first before the waters. Okay, I think that made sense already. So I'm gonna get my blue and mix that with black. Okay, I know it doesn't make sense at the moment. I'm gonna mix my phthalo green, okay? Just a mixture of those three colors, blue, green, and black. We're going to do first the reflections of the mountain before we glaze over it to suggest the waters. And for that, we'll be starting here. So I'm actually going in different directions for the reflections. Trust me, guys, this will make sense later. For now, it doesn't make sense at all. But you know, upon seeing the reference image, I kind of knew already what to do with this. So I'm just using some light blue colors down here. Again, we're still in the underpainting portion. Nothing here is super detailed just yet. We're not yet there. So just continue doing this random brush strokes. I'm just gonna dab onto my black and create some vertical reflections. Like that. Okay, now I'm gonna allow this area to dry. All right, I'm gonna use a fairly large brush to create the waters. So I'm gonna dab onto my phthalo blue and then white to create that cerulean blue color, and I'm gonna add some green, okay, to make it more turquoisey color, maybe more white and then blue. Okay, maybe this, okay, and I'm gonna use that to create the waters. Do not touch first this area because I think this is still wet. At least my painting is still wet. But if yours is already dry, you can actually glaze it like that. You can continue this, but I'm just gonna wait for it to dry before I do that technique later. Just be careful for okay. I'm gonna get my white, try to make some blending right here. And I'm going to start glazing this area. Apply the paint ever so slightly on the canvas. Don't push too hard. Extra. All right. All right, I'm gonna add water. Okay, I'm gonna start glazing over this area. The water, the extra water will help me glaze, because if it's too dry, the water will not really spread evenly on the canvas. Okay, welcome to my channel. You'll be hearing a lot of street noises when you're in my channel. I'm going to make some vertical white detailing. I think this is too white. I'm gonna add a little bit of blue, yeah, like that. Okay, here. All right, okay. Now I'm gonna allow that first to dry. Let's move back to the mountains. And I think this is the best time for me to use my palette knife. So I'll just use my good old palette knife. You can use a cleaner palette knife if you have one. I'm just really into not cleaning my palette knife, simply because I want the texture that it creates, the dried acrylics. So I'm just trying to remove some super extra acrylics that already dried. Look at that, how thick the dried acrylics is. All right, so I think I was able to remove that super thick acrylic. Like, look at this part of the palette knife that I removed. So it's not perfectly clean, but again, I really like the texture that the dried acrylics create. So let's proceed detailing the mountains, and for that I'll be mixing my burnt sienna and then titanium white like this. I'm just gonna mix the two colors. You can add tiny bit of black just to mute the color. Maybe more white. There is some sort of blue color that is mixing, but I don't mind. And I'm just gonna use the back of my palette knife to create the rocky texture of the mountain. So I'm just gonna apply it quite diagonal on the canvas. And I'm gonna allow the palette knife to create the texture that it spontaneously creates. Okay, now I think I need more white because we will be creating some like snowy portion of the mountain. So I'm gonna dab onto my white. I'm gonna add tiny bit of black just to gray it. You know, we don't want it to be super white. We're not yet highlighting. Actually, we're just trying to create texture, and then we're gonna highlight later. Okay, now I'm gonna get some black. All right. We're going to create some depths and like indentations between the rocks, or on the rocks. Yeah. Okay. This is farther than this mountain, that's why it's going to be a little blurry. okay, because of perspective, but later we're going to make it more distant. Okay, I'm gonna dab on again to my white, create some more textures. And some light browny colors again. All right. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna allow that first to dry. Let's move on to using our ordinary brush just to detail some areas. I'm gonna use my white to kind of blur this mountain and add some fine details or finer details that cannot be achieved just by using palette knife. Okay, and now we're really allowing this area to dry so that we can create more water details later. Okay, so now we're going to do some side trees, a couple of trees along the sides. So for that, we'll be using our black. Okay, just use our black first before we proceed to doing some greeny colors. So I'll be using the pointy part of the brush, and let's do first a silhouette type of trees. Okay, just silhouette, meaning just use the black color. The black color, if we start with the black, it already provides depth, okay, to the painting. That's why I told you guys I won't be painting underpainting this side because it will be covered with paints or other colors anyway. but for purposes of making sense, I just painted it so that you see what I'm talking about. So I'm gonna add again black. I'm gonna use again black. We're going to go this side. Okay, now I'm gonna use blue. Oh, sorry, sorry about that. I'm gonna use blue and then I'm gonna add white. Okay. I'm gonna add tiny bit of green. We're going to use this to create some foliage that are quite blurry in appearance. Again, not because they are blurry, but because of a distance and perspective. A little here. All right, now I'm gonna dab onto my green and yellow. And I'm gonna use that to already highlight the trees. Okay, that's super dry. All right, and then I'm gonna do the same thing right on the left side. Right. Now I'm gonna use a smaller brush or a more pointy brush, okay, to create little branches. All right. Now we're going back to the water portion because it looks a little less detailed. I mean, we're going to detail it even more, but I want to make sure that it's super dry. So let's move back to the mountain. I'm going to use some white, okay? We're going to glaze the upper portion or the sky or the mountains by using white. With this white, I'm just going to glaze it like this to simply cover the tip of the mountain. Not cover, but kind of glaze it, making it appear more distant, okay? It's all right if you get some gray or bluey color mixing because it's the sky. The sky is not pure white anyway. So we kind of like some real colors to be present in our painting. We don't want it to be cartoonish or anything like that. Okay, so just like that. So I just glaze it. It added distance to the painting, right? Like that. Okay, now let's move on to the water portion, or maybe not. I'm just gonna add some trees here because remember we did some reflections in the water that are dark. So those are actually the reflection of the trees, the distant trees. So for the trees, I'm just gonna use my black. You can choose to mix it with phthalo green, okay? We're just going to create vertical lines to suggest the trees. Like that. Okay, I'm gonna use some green. I'm gonna use some lighter yellowy greeny colors because we don't want it to be super black, just black. We want to suggest some green colors even on the distant trees. Even if they're distant, some colors are just gonna show from afar. They're not super dark. Okay, and I'm going to make some greeny colors that are light. Okay, and even on the reflections. Very minimal though, don't overdo this step. Very minimal. The reflections are actually almost silhouette, so we should not really detail it. I'm gonna get my white, mix that with tiny bit of brown, just like what we already had here. And I'm just gonna draw a line to separate the water from the mountain. Okay, with my black, I'm just gonna fix that. I'm just gonna use my fingers to kind of create that reflection that I want. Yeah, something like that. Okay, using black, we're going to create some small reflections. Remember, this is also a mountain. This should also be reflected down here. Right, like that. Right? Okay, I'm just gonna fix this part, making a second layer of paint, making it quite darker. Like that. Okay, now I think I'm gonna use my palette knife as well in creating the details on the reflection. So I'm gonna dab on again to my blue and then black. Maybe add some green, maybe blue, like that. Tiny bit of white. And I'm just gonna use the back, the sides of the palette knife to create these textures. You can even go vertical and horizontal because we're trying to create natural patterns or natural looking patterns. And it is the reflection part, so it should be a little distorted. Okay, wait guys. Okay, now I'm gonna get my paintbrush again, dab onto some white. And we're going to get some white like that. To suggest some clouds. Okay. I'm just applying a little bit more. All right. Yep, this is nice, guys. This is nice. So now I think I'm gonna glaze just, I think this is still wet, but I'm just gonna be gentle when it comes to glazing it. So I'm gonna dab onto my blue and then white, all right? And gently, I'm gonna glaze the part. Again, guys, be gentle. And I think that's really nice, okay? So if you want to add a little more depth here because it looks like a blob of paint, I think I will. Okay, I think this is good, guys. I think this is done. So I think I'm gonna sign this now because it's pretty much done. I'm just gonna use my light brownie color and I'm gonna sign right here. Okay. And we're done. We're done in what? 50 minutes, right? So for this part, I think I'm gonna glaze it a bit because I think it's kind of weird. Like that. Just glaze it a bit. Do not glaze too much. Okay. Making sure that it's quite dark. Like that. I really like this one. Okay, so I think we're done, guys, and I hope you enjoy this one. I hope you like this one. And if you're painting along with me, tag me on your post and let me know in the comment section below. And yeah, let me know, message me and send me your pictures of painting this one. So see you in my next video, guys. I hope you like this one. And yeah, have a good day. I don't have anything else to say. Mm-hmm. 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 Love you.